Rome. To see it is to tumble back in time and find yourself standing where Caesar stood, where chariots raced and gladiators battled, where Western civilization was formed. But Rome is no museum. In fact, it's alive and well and going strong. Modern Rome swarms around ancient Rome. In fact, I can't imagine one without the other. In Rome, the ancient and modern live side by side. You can dine in the shadow of a temple to Jupiter. Get your bearings on a Roman column. Or glance across a busy square to see archaeologists unearthing ancient frescoes. It's all in a day in the life of Rome. Romans are always on the move. The same creativity and ingenuity that built empires still energizes the streets of modern Rome. Parking is a creative affair, and driving is controlled chaos. There are no lanes to speak of, and every inch of space is fair game. They could only dig 2 subway lines here in Rome because they kept coming across so many ancient ruins. So I'm going to walk to my next destination if I can get past these modern-day charioteers. Now, the important thing about crossing the street here is you have to be decisive. Don't hesitate, just plunge in. When in Rome, I always do as the Romans do. I don't know. Scusi, could you help me get across? Oh, grazie. Oh, my goodness. Grazie. Having survived the modern streets, I'm headed for Rome's important ancient ruins. The Forum, the Palatine Hill, the Colosseum, and the Baths of Caracalla. This was ancient Rome's busy street, the Via Sacra. Victorious generals rode through the crowds here, standing upright in gilded chariots, their cheeks painted red. Carts hauled booty from the war and displayed pictures of the battles. A long procession of soldiers and prisoners followed. For hundreds of years, Roman legions swept across the Mediterranean, amassing an empire that stretched from Britain to North Africa to Babylon. The Via Sacra leads into the Roman Forum, the heart of ancient Rome. Every morning, prominent citizens came here to discuss business and politics. Romans assembled in front of the Curia, or Senate building, to debate the issues of the day. Speakers climbed to the rostrum to voice their opinions. From this platform, Mark Antony may well have called out to friends, Romans, and countrymen to avenge the murder of Julius Caesar. The Forum is ringed with temples. In exchange for good fortune, the Romans honored their gods with rituals and sacrifices. The Temple of Vesta housed the sacred fire of Rome, and it was the job of the Vestal Virgins to keep it lit. Chosen when they were children, the Vestal Virgins vowed 30 years of chastity. If they strayed, they were buried alive. The worst fate to befall the average tourist in the Forum is theft. Pickpockets frequent the area around the Forum and Colosseum, as well as other areas of Rome. Beware, pickpockets can spot a tourist a mile away. I hate looking like a tourist, so I bought one of these fake cell phones. Absolutely everyone here has a cell phone. It's Roman chic. Pronto? If you were chic in ancient Rome, you lived here on the Palatine Hill above the Forum. Then, as now, the Palatine offered a peaceful escape from the crowds below and splendid views of Rome. Walking alone in the quiet among the orange trees and cypress groves, the past has a way of sinking in. The Imperial Palace stood here, and the ruins of houses, sunken stadiums, and courtyards are traces of the great wealth and luxury of the Roman elite.
As ancient Rome became wealthier, people spent a fortune on food and feasting, sometimes bankrupting themselves. Today, Romans still take their food very seriously.
Lunch opportunities in Rome abound. If you're short on time, stand up in a bar and grab a panino, a sandwich often made with ham or prosciutto and cheese. Join the crowd for a cappuccino or an espresso. A tavola calda is like a delicatessen with meats and prepared foods. It's another great place for a quick, inexpensive snack or picnic lunch to go. My favorite, though, is a Pizzeria Rustica, where you can choose from tasty-looking squares of mouth-watering pizza.
Signora, da mangiare qua da porto via? Da incartare? Oppure la mangiare?
I can't resist soupli, a fried Roman specialty of rice, tomato sauce, and cheese. Food and fun, that's what the populace of Rome demanded. The emperors distributed free grain and threw games at the Colosseum to entertain and pacify the general populace. A typical day in the Colosseum started with a comic, bloodless battle between women or dwarves. Then the games grew deadly. An early afternoon show might feature stalking and killing hippos. Then gladiators took to the ring, brandishing swords, pikes, or red-hot bars. When a gladiator fell, he could appeal to the crowd for mercy. A sea of waving cloth and upturned thumbs freed the man, but more often than not, the crowd gave a thumbs down. What better after a little slaughter than a bath? Unemployment in ancient Rome was high, and individual dwellings were pretty wretched. So everyone, rich and poor, whiled away the hours in public places. These baths, the baths of Caracalla, were fed by an engineering marvel, the famous Roman aqueducts. Here, Romans followed an elaborate ritual of hot and cold baths. Roman bathers socialized, exchanged dinner invitations, and sipped wine in these luxurious surroundings, which were decorated with more gold, marble, and mosaics than any other building in Rome. At the baths, Romans could exercise at the gym, browse in the art gallery and library, or visit the snack bar to feast on treats like dormice, small, fat rodents with hairy tails.
I've left ancient Rome to join a couple of friends for a more modern snack, gelato and cafe. Now, if you order un cafe in Rome, you'll actually get an espresso. And you'll get your cafe here in a bar, which is really a cafe. It can be a little confusing. And if you sit down for your drink, you'll wind up paying twice as much. But you know what? It's worth it. I love taking in the sights and sounds of Rome.
No matter where you stop, you're never far from one of Rome's magnificent fountains. Fountains are the music of Rome. Some are still fed by ancient Roman aqueducts. In ancient times, fountains provided the public water supply. Today, they still offer welcome relief from the hot Roman sun.
This piazza, the Piazza della Rotonda, is one of my favorites. In fact, this is my favorite section of Rome, the historic center, or Centro Storico.
The gem of the Centro Storico is the Pantheon. The Pantheon was a temple dedicated to the gods of the 7 planets. The interior is much the same as when it was built in the 2nd century by the inventive Emperor Hadrian. Pantheon was preserved because it was converted to a Christian church in the 7th century. The opening in the ceiling is a window to the heavens. My favorite walk in Rome winds through the back streets from the Pantheon to the Teatro Marcello. From the Pantheon, start wandering toward the river. Delightful surprises pop up as you wind your way through narrow streets. There's Piazza Navona and its famous fountains by the 17th century artist Bernini, who left his lively art in the streets and churches of Rome. Nearby at Campo dei Fiori, literally the field of flowers, you'll find a fruit and vegetable market every weekday morning. At the large square, the Largo Argentina, archaeologists continue to uncover ancient temples from the 5th century BC. The Largo is also known for its clerical outfitter shops, and the selection here is divine. Hidden away in these back streets is one of Rome's most charming fountains. The turtles weren't part of the original 16th century design. They were added later by none other than the artist Bernini. Our route ends at the stately Teatro Marcello, an ancient theater which, in typical Roman fashion, was converted to a palace in the 16th century and now houses luxury apartments. Wherever you go in Rome, you'll take in one of my favorite sights, Romans.
Sì, va bene, io ti aspetto.
All right, tell me, what do you think? Do I look Roman now? What do you say, thumbs up? My Italian friend Paolo lives here in Rome, and he agreed to drive me across town and give me the driver's perspective on Roman traffic.
Ma guarda questo. Deficiente.
Cursing is an ancient tradition around here, and Roman cursing is as creative as Roman driving.
Mortacci tua.
Paolo just said mortacci tua, which means a curse on your ugly dead relatives.
Imbecille.
Imbecille. Now what could that mean? Our wild ride takes us across town to one of the most fascinating churches in Rome. Layer upon layer of history. That's Rome. Just scratch the surface and you'll find something totally unexpected. And nowhere is this more clearly illustrated than right here at this church, San Clemente. The facade is from the 18th century, but step inside and you're in a medieval church with glowing mosaics that are 900 years old. The mosaics are some of the most unusual in Rome, as they depict a living cross that grows from a vine and symbolizes salvation. Doves symbolize the apostles. And the drinking deer represent baptism. But there's more. A door in the back of the church takes you down to the 4th century Christian church, which was pillaged by Normans and buried under rubble. On the wall is one of the first examples of written Italian. As it happens, it's an example of early cursing. Down again and further back in time. A narrow circular stairway leads to a 2nd century Mithraeum, where members of a mysterious cult sacrificed bulls to the Persian god Mithra. And back here begins an even older labyrinth of Roman streets and buildings. Ancient tunnels reverberate with the sound of rushing water, an underground network of ancient reservoirs and aqueducts. A century ago, a child fell into the water here. He was swept 5 miles outside the city before he was found, dazed but alive. I'm taking the bus to the next destination, the Vatican. The bus in Rome is the major form of public transportation and really quite easy to use. Bus tickets and route maps are available at tabacchi or tobacco shops.
Do you have a bus ticket, please?
How many?
One, please.
1,500.
1,500. Grazie.
The bus stops are called fermata. On the signs, an arrow shows the direction the bus is headed, and the stop you're standing at is shown in a box. Enter where it says Entrata and validate your ticket in the orange machine. My bus ride takes me to another country, Vatican City. Occupying 109 independent acres within the city of Rome, Vatican City is the seat of the Roman Catholic Church and home of the Pope. The Basilica of St. Peter's is a magnet for pilgrims and tourists from all over the world. The church is dedicated to the Apostle Peter, who was the first bishop of Rome. All popes are his spiritual descendants. American writer Henry James wrote that entering the church seems not so much a going in somewhere as a going out. The inside is enormous, ornate, dramatic, the very definition of Baroque. For centuries, architects have been copying the famous dome designed by Michelangelo. The U.S. Capitol Dome is an example. Next door to the Basilica is the Vatican Post Office. Vatican City has its own coins, stamps, and postal service. If you have a postcard to mail, mail it here. The Pope's mail is more reliable than the Romans. Nearby, unflappable Swiss guards have been protecting the Pope since the 16th century. They still wear Renaissance uniforms designed by Michelangelo. A hefty walk from St. Peter's Basilica will bring you to the Vatican Museum. Its most notable artistic treasures are from the ancient world and the artists of the Renaissance. Pick up a map and plan your visit well to avoid overload. The Sistine Chapel is the jewel of the museum. The ceiling is Michelangelo's vision of the creation, original sin, and the flood. Flanking the biblical scenes are portraits of prophets. At the center, God gives life to Adam in a scene that mirrors the artistic process. Wandering the streets around the Vatican, you can find just about every religious souvenir imaginable. My shopping mission this trip to Rome is to bring home a bottle of fine Italian wine. At the Enoteca Parlamento, the only problem is there are too many great wines to choose from. Fortunately, there's help. There's an 88, this one right here.
In Italy, 95, 88.
88?
90 and 95.
Good years?
Terrific.
All right, so I got
for red wine.
So I got an 88. Maybe I should get a 90 instead of a 95.
Exactly.
Describe the type of wine you like and ask for a recommendation and a sample. Big nose, very good. Very nice.
Very good.
Very, very nice, yes. The wine shop is not far from Rome's shopping hub, the area around the Via del Corso. The The long, straight street that served as a racetrack in the 18th century is now lined with boutiques. The Via Condotti, which runs from the Corso to the Piazza di Spagna, is a shopping mecca with top-of-the-line boutiques and designer shops. When you're all shopped out, the Spanish Steps are a great place to have a seat and do some tourist watching. The area has attracted foreigners ever since the 19th century. The poet Keats lived in the piazza, right next to the steps. For more peaceful shopping and wandering, visit Trastevere, Rome's left bank. In ancient times, emperors built suburban villas in cool, shady Trastevere. Today, it's a warren of narrow streets dotted with antique and specialty shops. One unique little place is Polvere di Tempo, a shop that sells, among other things, time. Owners Adrian Rodriguez and Mariana Nye handcraft almost all the items in this magical little shop. As you wander the streets of Rome, you can take refuge from the heat in the cool, dark churches. Santa Maria in Trastevere is a 12th century church built over a 4th century basilica and one of the oldest churches in Rome. It may well have been the first place Christians could worship in public. Bring some change for the coin-operated lights in churches. It's well worth it. When it's time for dinner in Rome, it's a good idea to get away from major tourist areas. Ristorante usually offer a more formal setting. Trattoria are more casual and less expensive. And the osteria is traditionally a locals' hangout with no menu. There are plenty of great restaurants in Rome, but I'm in the mood for one of those scrumptious, thin-crusted pizzas. I'm in a pizzeria forno a legna, which means wood oven pizzeria. The most popular Roman pizzas are the margherita, plain cheese, the funghi with mushrooms, and the capricciosa, artichokes, prosciutto, olives, and egg. After dinner, there's no better tradition than a gelato, and no better place to indulge than Giolidi's, Rome's preeminent gelato establishment. A warm Mediterranean evening, Italian gelato, and fabulous fountains. Piazza Navona is lively at night. It's an Italian tradition to stroll around the piazza after dinner and enjoy the sights. At night, the monuments begin to glow and Rome turns up the magic. Rome leaves you with so many impressions. The energy and life of the modern world, and the splendor and ingenuity of the ancient one. There's a sense of timelessness here. But then, of course, it is the eternal city. Well, you know what they say, when in Rome, and there's no better way to fit in than having your own Vespa. What do you think? Is it me? All right, I need a thumbs up here because this could be suicide. Imbecile! Mamma mia!